I was just a very active person. That was my lifestyle. And now to not be able to stand on one leg, not be able to really run for longer than 10 seconds, um, not be able to do so much, like even to write or, a lot of things. It's very different, but I don't care as much as I did before. I was really upset in the beginning
Mm.
because change is just difficult. There's no way around it. And I learned the more that you accept what is going on, the better things become and the better you actually feel. Acceptance is huge in my recovery.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamas, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Bill from recoveryafterstroke.com. This is episode 116, and my guest today is Whitney Spots. At 34, Whitney experienced a brainstem stroke caused by a cavernous angioma. At the time of the stroke, Whitney was only very recently married and was also a mum to a toddler who was one of the big motivating factors that kept her mummy going and doing her best to overcome the challenges that stroke caused. Now, before we get started, if you have ever wondered what else I can do to help you with your stroke recovery, you should know that I have set up a few recovery after stroke support packages where stroke survivors can come into a community while trying to get better on their own and get help from people who are already further along in the recovery timeline. I too am a 3-time stroke survivor and a brain surgery survivor, and I have built for you what I was missing when I was sent home from hospital in the hopes that you don't have to do stroke recovery as tough as I did. Support packages give you access to a variety of tools 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that you can also work on other areas of stroke recovery that you don't get the chance to at physical therapy or rehabilitation. With tailored support available for less than $8.50 per week, all recovery after stroke support packages bring stroke recovery to you in the comfort of your own home. To try out recovery after stroke support and see if it is right for you, you will get the first 7 days free, as well as a 30-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. As a bonus, you will also get 2 face-to-face Zoom support calls with myself to take your recovery to the next level. Go to recoveryafterstroke.com/support to sign up. It won't cost you anything for the first 7 days, and you will get a full refund if you are not happy after 30 days. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And now it's on with the show. Whitney Spots, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here and just help raise awareness about stroke.
It's interesting how many people come forward to talk about it and how many stroke survivors say things like, I just want to help other people. I just want to tell other people what my story is, what my experience is, just to make their life a little bit better, which I just find amazing that stroke survivors who are doing it really tough really have that front of mind, and it's heartwarming. Tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
Well, right before the stroke, I was 34 years old when it happened, but um, I was a physician assistant in the ER. I was comfortable in my job. I'd been working 6 years. I married my husband just a couple years prior and had a beautiful baby girl. And it seemed like, life was just starting for us. And I really didn't have any warning. It was just another Monday morning, and I woke up at about 3 a.m. with the worst headache of my life. And as a physician assistant in the ER, you know what that means. But I didn't even put it on the radar because I was young, I was healthy, I had no risk factors, no family history. So I just assumed I had a migraine or something. I'd never really had a migraine before. And I was very wrong. Um, I started to get sick and slur my speech, and my husband luckily knew that something was very wrong and took me immediately to the hospital. But I was having a hemorrhagic stroke.
Was it an aneurysm, an AVM? What caused the bleed?
I had a cavernous malformation in the brainstem. And so, in addition to having a hemorrhagic stroke, I needed emergency brain surgery on my brainstem. So it was a very risky procedure. But I'm here. All is well.
Yeah, well, it's so fascinating because I know plenty of people who have had a brainstem stroke. I know plenty of people through the podcast, of course, who have had a cavernous angioma that has caused the bleed. And when in the past I had heard about people having a brain hemorrhage or an aneurysm burst or something along those lines, it very, very rarely was a good outcome. Like in the past, we never got to hear about all these amazing stories of survival and recovery and overcoming. When you woke up from all of this drama, what were you left with? What kind of challenges did you have to overcome?
Well, unfortunately, I was awake I was, um, I didn't have the proper affect. Like now I would be scared what was happening, but I had a flat affect that I was just curious. I was losing function of my arm. I couldn't sign into the ER. I was losing function of my leg. They told me I had blood on my brain. I needed surgery and all these things. And I'm just like, it wasn't quite clicking appropriately. But there was so much inflammation on my brain that the surgery was done in one day because it was located in my brainstem and there was so much inflammation they weren't sure that they'd be able to get to it. So that one day was pretty tough because I couldn't talk. I had severe facial droop and I could just think all day of possible scenarios. Um,
So,
So I kind of wish that I was asleep, but I was awake during that time. And then when I woke up from surgery, I was completely paralyzed on the right side. The surgery did correct the facial droop. It took about a few weeks to significantly change, and then a few months to change all the way. But it was corrected a lot by surgery. But I was left with my arm and leg paralyzed completely, no movement, nothing. Can't wiggle toes, like there's nothing
and
for about 2 months.
for 2 months, so that was a pretty intense rehab. So what you're saying to me is you went to the hospital actually quite aware, although you didn't realize the significance of what you were hearing and what they were telling you, you're actually quite with it, and therefore you had a lot of time to run everything through your mind and what the possible
Right,
outcomes might be.
correct. Correct. So it was a tough day for sure. I have a daughter, as I said before, and she was 18 months at the time. And so I was fearful of having to say goodbye and my family and my husband and my life and just I felt young. I was 34. I was like, This is all at the time I have." I it was a tough day.
And was family able to get there and see you, or did it happen relatively quickly that it was just about getting you well rather than sort of bringing everyone around?
They did. They flew from California, New Mexico. My mom drove up from South Florida. Everybody was there because we had that one day. So it did give people a little bit of time to um, say goodbye. If, you know, that was it was presented like this is really her only choice. She is bleeding in her brain, and we don't like to do brainstem surgery, but this is the best option for her. And so it was a very real possibility. Um, and like I said, I just had a very flat affect. Like I couldn't really comprehend the severity of what was happening to me.
Yeah, how could you? I mean, you're 3 minutes earlier, you're just a normal person in bed sleeping, no need
Right.
to worry about brain injuries or anything like that. And now you're suddenly bombarded with all this new information about your life being at risk, and you can't comprehend it. How can you possibly comprehend it? I went to hospital and I had a bleed on my brain, and I went 7 days after it started bleeding. And then
Mm.
when I was at hospital, I was walking around. I was never in my bed, and the the nurses were always looking for me and telling me to stay in my bed. But because I felt well after they gave me some medication, I didn't also connect the dots into how serious this could be and turn out. And they were so concerned. And I think that being unaware of the seriousness had really helped early on, especially when family found out that I was in hospital. They came and saw me and they did the whole, oh, well, he looks great. I don't really know what the issue is, which was good and bad because then later on they did the whole, you look great, even though I was really unwell. Um, so how long has it been since? So you were 34. How old are you now?
I'm 36 now, so I'm very early on my stroke recovery. I'm having a miraculous recovery, really. But it was January of 2019 when it happened.
And then you've gone from hospital into rehabilitation for a few weeks, or was it months?
I was in the hospital for a few weeks, and then I went to two different rehab facilities for a few weeks each place, and um, it was a total about 2 months.
And then when you came home, what was that like? How was the reintegration into the house life after that with a little baby and being a mum and dealing with stroke?
It was really, really tough. There's really no sugarcoating or silver lining. It was absolutely terrible in the beginning. I couldn't change her diaper, put her in a high chair, put her in her car seat, put her into bed. I couldn't hold her. I couldn't really barely walk. So I couldn't chase after her and play with her. There were so many things that I couldn't do. And as a new mother, as a young mother and a new mother, you just almost feel like you're not doing enough or you're not a good mom, even though that's not true. But you just can't do so many things. I couldn't do her hair, for example, like which is not important, but like I just couldn't be the mom that I wanted to be, and I couldn't drive to the grocery store for my family, like help out my husband, and I just couldn't do a lot
Were you
in the
hard on
beginning.
were you hard on yourself? Sounds like you were hard on yourself for not being able to do these things.
I was in the beginning, and that has been this whole experience has taught me so much about myself that it's kind of a neat experience, really. I'm grateful for the wake up call and just for all of the lessons that I'm learning. And I was hard on myself when I couldn't do something. I would say, "Oh my gosh, you should totally be able to do this." I would try 20 times or something, and I couldn't undo a lid or something like that, and you'd have to ask for help. And it was really hard for me to ask for help. I'm a very independent person. In the beginning, I needed help with everything from tying my shoe to putting up my hair to taking a shower to just driving to rehab. Like, I just needed help all the time. And I was harsh on myself, and I'm learning just to let go and soften, and just be a different person, I guess. Or I
Yeah.
don't know.
Question would be, what does what do you say to yourself, the person you are today to the person just 2 years ago? What kind of a conversation would you have with that person now?
You know what I did, which really helped me? I put a picture of myself as a baby, as a little girl. I would think I was 4, right by my bedside in a frame. And I really liked this picture. And I talked to that person all the time because she
Wow.
looked like my daughter, like looked like Stella. And of course, I would never say what I said to myself to my daughter or my best friend or anybody else besides me.
Wow.
And I knew that it wasn't a healthy relationship or personal relationship with myself, and that I was going through a really tough time, and that I needed to soften, and that I needed self love. And that was probably the best thing. I still have that little picture by my bedside. So
Whitney, that's really profound what you just said. How did you get to that point? Because not many people think of that, and you did, and you've experienced a also a profound shift in how you've experienced the challenges that you've had to face. So, like, what made you get to that point to bring little Whitney into the picture and have this amazing heart to heart conversation with her?
Um, I must have read it somewhere or seen it somewhere or something. I don't recall that, but um, I mean, just this whole experience, the emotional journey has almost been harder for me in a way than the physical journey. So I have thought about ways to create more self-love,
Mm,
to create more compassion for myself. I mean, I went into medicine because I wanted to help serve other people. That's why I became a physician assistant. So when this happened to me, I was like, it's not about serving other people right now. It's about serving yourself so that you can serve other people. And that was kind of the turning point where I just started. Um, I feel like I just kind of, what is the word? I don't know, came into all of the right people at the right time. I mean, books and people like you, and just I'm in sync or something, and I just feel like I'm getting tons of information that's really neat and really interesting from everything about like neuroplasticity to stroke rehab to the American Heart Association that I'm working with in the United States. And just there's so many great things happening right now. So
that's great. I know that.
just feel in sync.
Yeah, I know that in coaching, when I've coached people in the past and now, and before I coached stroke survivors, I coached people just from all walks of life. Often, very often, many of them, when they had an injury that was associated to their body or to their health or to their well-being, they often went into the physical side of it. If I can get up and go there, it's all good. If I can do that, it's all good. If I can do that, it's all good. And they neglect the emotional recovery, thinking that it's too hard or they don't know how to go there or it's too raw. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why they avoid it. But sometimes it's just because in stroke recovery, if the to get out of hospital, you really have to be able to be independent in some way, shape, or form, whether it's push your wheelchair around or walk with a cane or with a an assistance of some sort. It's all about the physical recovery. And for some people, that takes a really long time. And therefore, it could be the only focus for a really long time. And the emotional recovery just gets neglected, not by choice or on purpose, just because it has to take a back seat so that that person can go to the toilet themselves or shower themselves or all those other
Sure.
things. And then it catches up with people eventually. And if I can bring people to that point where they are doing both recoveries at the same time, then that's even better, because what you want is you want to do the physical stuff, but while you're sitting down and resting, do it. A heartfelt meditation doesn't take any time. It doesn't take any extra effort. Just pop your headphones in, grab one off, YouTube or Spotify for free, and just allow yourself to go into this place, where I think recovery really begins. And what we see externally, on the physical, is important, but I think it's second in the order of which recovery is most important. And I know for me, when my head went offline, I actually started to notice my heart in my chest for the first time. Like, I properly started to notice it. I didn't realize that this thing that I was feeling in my chest was my heart, and the importance that that played in my life. It was just so bizarre. I'm glad I found it.
Yeah, I mean, the mind body, some people speak of the mind body connection, and I don't feel like they're separate. Like it's one unit. It's not mind affects body or body affects mind, but like it's all one thing. So I think that for people to separate physical limitation and then separate emotional or mental health creates a barrier for some because it's all kind of related and intertwined and it's like a one unit.
Yeah, it's like the earth. We've got the land, the land that we can't get to the different continents unless we use the sea, and the sea is what connects the entire
Right.
planet, right? So without the sea, then we've just got this land mass, and yeah, you could be forgiven for thinking that if it's all land mass, then it's all connected, and because the sea is in the way, we kind of see this disconnection. But the reality is that there's ways to navigate that, and without one, we don't have the other. We have this a different version of it. So I love the way that you spoke to this little version of yourself. It's a really important thing, and I love that you somewhere, you don't know where, but somewhere you picked up on that you wouldn't talk to your friend the way you're talking to yourself,
Right.
and you ran with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it really worked for me. Like I really feel like I actually not I was never a person that hated myself or anything or thought I wasn't enough or anything like that. Um, but I wasn't necessarily a person in love with my qualities and myself. And now I can say that I am. I think I'm amazing
Mhm.
and I'm just wonderful and happy to be here and survivor and a thriver and everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did your husband deal with all of the sudden stuff that happened, hospitalization, and then your recovery? How's he doing?
It was really tough also on him just because we have a toddler. Well, I mean, the initial response from him was amazing. Like, he noticed something was wrong. He got me the help that I needed. He was really calm. Even when we got terrible news, he didn't freak out, which probably helped me not freak out. And he was wonderful. And it was really tough because I live in Florida and one of my rehab centers was in Georgia. So it was about 7 hours away from here. And so it was tough to try to see me. Like, he wasn't always there because we had our daughter and we were trying to make life as normal as we could for her because she was just at the age where of course she didn't know why I was in rehab or anything, but she sort of knew that I was in the hospital, like mommy's not here, where's mom kind of thing. And so I think that just tugs at your heartstrings, and it was hard for him, but he did a really wonderful job. He's very supportive, and yeah, I couldn't ask for more.
Yeah. What an amazing motivation, though, having the little one at home, thinking, "Where's mum?" And it's like, wow, I'm getting back to you. Like, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get better. Did she make? Uh, did she play a massive role in your recovery?
Absolutely. When I was at my first rehab center right out of surgery, well, I was in the hospital for a couple weeks, but a couple weeks out of surgery, I was um, I was pretty blue. I was paralyzed, not blue color, but I was down and
Yeah.
out. I was
Right.
feeling really emotional and just like, why am I here? Why did they even save me? Why did I even get out of surgery? I don't want to even really be here. Not that I contemplated suicide, but I just felt so useless and I couldn't move my right side and I couldn't do so many things. And so I put pictures of her all over my hospital wall, like 25 pictures probably. And I just looked at them every day. And over the course of a few days, even, I just changed my attitude and I said, she needs me and I want to be here for her. And I can only be here for her if I'm here for myself. So even if I can't move my right side ever, it's okay. And it was like the first step of acceptance. Like, I started thinking of all these people that I have seen, celebrities and things that don't have arms or don't have legs or are in wheelchairs or whatever. And I was like, they have a beautiful life. So you too can have a beautiful life.
Regardless of
And
what happens.
yeah, and she has been a huge factor in my recovery every single day. I play with her toys. Like when I did OT, I would play with her toys and just do as much as I could because I had all of these puzzles and blocks and stuff in the beginning that was very hard for me. And so she's perfect. She was the perfect age. Actually, I don't like using the word perfect because what's perfect, but she was a great age, and really, she's my little angel.
Yeah, you can say she's perfect. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. She's perfect. um,
Yeah.
in episode 56, I interviewed Jason Gaudet, and Jason was from Canada, and he experienced a bleed in the brain. He had an AVM rupture, an arteriovenous malformation, and he, in the interview, was talking about how the recovery that he experienced was happening around the same time that his son was starting to walk, and he couldn't walk, and he realized that his son was going through the same things that he was, and because he had this real adult awareness of what it's like to try and walk again, he was his son's biggest supporter of, come on mate, you'll be right, I know you're not walking yet, or you fell over, you fell on your bum, it doesn't matter, get up. And he just had this new awareness of what his son was going through to get back on his feet for the first time, and it was so motivating to him. And he was talking about that really massive connection that he was able to have with his son, that he wouldn't have had in that way had he not experienced the challenges of regaining his ability to walk again.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel this time that I've spent at home with Stella recovering and everything. I was always at work. I wasn't around as much at all. And we have formed a really beautiful bond over this. And I feel, the same way. It's really it's really kind of neat.
Yeah, I I was at home when my kids were in their teenage years, so at a time where I would have been uh, pretty full on in work and out of the house for many hours, and then in the study, putting together all the things I needed to do for work. I would have spent less quality focused time on them. And my wife was at work doing all those things that she needed to do to keep us going and keep the family afloat and financial and all those things. And because I wasn't able to work, I was able to be there for the kids when they came home from school.
Mhm.
When they left for school, I was able to prepare their lunches and do all those things. And I wouldn't have got that opportunity to be so involved in their teenage years at a time, which I think is really important for kids, for their parents to be really involved when we're in the thick of trying to keep the bills paid and the mortgage paid and all that kind of stuff. So it was a really amazing time for me as well, and I got to have this little gift that kept on giving for both the stroke and the opportunity to be at home with the kids. The stroke kept on giving the gift of letting me be at home for years, and the being at home for years kept me involved in those formative years of my kids' lives um, without trying to be a weirdo dad, who imposes himself all the time. I was just here, so I wasn't doing the whole imposing myself. It was just, I'm here. They'd come home, and we'd chat about things that at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the evening, I wouldn't normally chat to them about because I wouldn't see them until 7 o'clock. So
Right.
it was a really bizarre gift that you get. It was a great gift that you get from a bizarre situation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really tough to have kids and have a stroke, and then on the flip side, it's the most beautiful thing because you do have that time and you do have that bond. So,
Yeah. Your how long did it take for you to get back to all the things that you were doing beforehand? Basically, what I mean by that is, did you get back to driving relatively quickly? Did you go back to work? What happened there?
well, I still am recovering today, actually. But I couldn't drive for about 11 months. Um, I am not. able to go back to work yet because of the duties of a physician assistant, suturing and intubating people and just doing tons of typing. I can't really type on the computer. I usually use voice to text a lot for our social media or for texting. Although it is getting a little bit, it's gotten better with my left hand. Um, but it's been last year. Um, yeah, it's just still ongoing. I'm just starting to be able to run again. I just another probably a couple months ago got the strength to hold my daughter again. I'm almost fast enough to chase her. Um, but there's a lot of things that I once did. I mean, I was a gymnast growing up. I was a competitive cheerleader. I was super active prior stroke. I did yoga, paddleboarding, running. I mean,
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
I was just a very active person. That was my lifestyle. And now to not be able to stand on one leg, not be able to really run for longer than 10 seconds, not be able to do so much, like even to write or, a lot of things. It's very different, but I don't care as much as I did before. I was really upset in the beginning
Mm.
because change is just difficult. There's no way around it. And I learned the more that you accept what is going on, the better things become and the better you actually feel. Acceptance is huge in my recovery. So,
So what it does is acceptance allows the body to just calm down. It allows the stress hormones to relax, to go away. It allows the blood pressure to stabilize. It allows the heartbeat to, just settle down. And therefore, that creates the perfect environment for healing in the brain to happen. And then as you go about your daily life, because uh, you have to be active anyway because you have a toddler, the
right, which is a good thing.
Yeah, you have to, because that's what that's doing, is that's allowing neuroplasticity to continue happening and repetition to continue happening. And there'll be a time where you're holding something in your left hand and you're going to try and reach out with your right hand. And that
Right.
movement, without thinking about it, in that acceptance phase of your life, is going to allow for great neuroplasticity to occur. And and I'm not saying that that means that your hand's going to come back exactly the way that it was before, but what it will do is allow for the natural evolution of recovery to happen. And therefore, you don't have to really think about it. You just have to know is that I need to be able to chase after this little thing because I need to be able to get to her when she's going into the wrong direction. So the running will come as well. So I started running probably about 8 or 9 months after my brain surgery. And at the beginning, I was really afraid to do more than a couple of steps because I felt weird. It felt strange. The feedback from the
Mhm.
ground was different. I was afraid that I'll buckle my knee, it hurt.
Right.
But then as I started to just run to the corner of our street or across the road when it was quiet or something like that, then I started to notice that the amount of distance that I could take next time just grew, even if it was by 2 or 3
Yeah,
steps.
like the muscle memory kind of kicks in a little bit, and before you know it, you're like, "Oh yeah, it knows how to do that," and
Yeah, right.
it's automatic. And
Yeah, so it might feel a bit different and a bit um, not the same as before, but it still allows you to do the function of running so that it could be useful. Whereas before, when I used to run at the gym, I did it because I thought I was running to be fit, healthy, all those things. But I didn't realize what the use to running was. For me, running became useful after the stroke because one of my physios said to me, why do you want to be able to run? And I said, not to run a marathon, but just to get across the road if a car's coming. I don't want to be in the middle of the road. He goes, well, that's a great idea. It's a great reason to run. Now let's give it a go.
yeah, well, yeah, I actually have found other things that I almost love more than running.
Mm.
Because adapt is the name of the game when you have a stroke. And so I bought a tricycle, and it looks just like a beach cruiser. I live on the beach here in Florida, and it allows me to go with my family for bike rides. And when I couldn't drive, I would ride my bike 8, 10 miles and go to my appointments and stuff. And it was great repetition. And I took up swimming. And it's running is kind of on the back burner. It was more important in the beginning because I couldn't do it and I just wanted to do it. And it was like something that I had to work with. And now it's okay that I can't exactly run because honestly, I like other things better.
You seem like a very curious person. Is it curiosity that gets you thinking down these paths and tangents, or is it just a willingness to explore? What is the quality that you're tapping into to discover all these new things?
I would say I was just raised from two beautiful people, and I I don't know. I just keep a really open mind. This whole experience has really offered me like an opportunity to just dive deep, and explore and just don't sweat the small stuff, and just kind of explore options and ideas maybe that you didn't think about before or that you are opposed to or closed minded about before. Like maybe, think about something new or try something new. Um, it's liberated me in a way. I was always a very I wasn't like type A necessarily, but I did have perfectionism. I did have overachiever in my blood, and I still do a little bit, but it's not about that. And that's what this whole experience has taught me.
Who would have thought that these profound, amazing lessons come from such adversity? But you're not the only stroke survivor to say that. There's so many people saying the same thing. And there's a lot of stroke survivors who aren't there yet. They're still cranky about it and upset about it and
Yeah.
still have a lot of other struggles. And that's perfectly fine. Um, and sometimes it's okay to uh, not be happy with something that it's left you, I mean, that's perfectly fine too. The thing is not to stay there. It's just to acknowledge that you're not happy with something and then go, all right, well, I'm not happy with that. What can I be happy with? And move towards finding what it is that you can be happy with. And you've got so many things that you can be happy with because you have so many other gifts that life has given you. And so did I, and so do many stroke survivors. And one of the great questions that I used to ask myself was, even in this most terrible time, like, what's good about this situation right now? And
Hmm.
that one thing of what's good, that curiosity to find what might be good, even if it was just the flower has bloomed,
Right.
that's enough.
If I can say one thing, I really gratitude has changed my life in a big, beautiful way. And I was in rehab and somebody told me to start a gratitude journal. And at the time, I really couldn't hold a pen, I couldn't write one letter. So I looked at her like she was crazy. I said, I'm grateful to be alive, and that's about it. And then I thought about it, and I was really at that time just very determined to get my handwriting back. I was right-handed, and I didn't want to learn with my left. I just want to do my right. And so I did it, and it started out, you know, a letter, and then a thought, and then a word, and then months later a sentence, and then months later a couple sentences, and the uniqueness, the muscle memory, as we talked about, it has coming back in my hand, and it's like my handwriting has a little bit of its uniqueness back, and it's still very hard and challenging, and my wrist gets tired easily, but it's a beautiful thing. And in the meantime, my whole life changed. I see gratitude everywhere I look. Every day I wake up grateful for the day, grateful that I'm awake, and it's a beautiful thing. So just to have one good thing, even if you just cling to one thing, flood yourself with gratitude and things shift.
They do, because it focuses the mind. It creates neuroplasticity, new pathways in focusing on the positive rather than the negative. And the sneaky part about writing a gratitude journal is that it's stimulating all sorts of parts of the brain, and connecting dots that were potentially lost and missed and have gone to sleep. So you think you're writing a gratitude journal just to focus on gratitude, but it's doing all sorts of amazing things to heal your brain
And it is.
that we're not
Yeah.
really focusing on, that we're not aware of. It's just happening in the background, just this amazing stuff,
Right.
right? Um, so yeah, gratitude is a huge one, and um, a lot of people uh, who know about gratitude can go into it quite easily after a serious health issue. Some people need to be reminded. The fact that somebody told you that, it's possible at the time for people to also take that the wrong way. Like if somebody came to me at certain times in my life when things were terrible, and I'm not talking about my stroke experience, and told me to be gratitude, to have gratitude, I would have probably told them where to go. Seriously, I should be grateful about this terrible thing that just happened to me. That was that was where I was then, and and
Sure.
and
That's how I was in the beginning.
yeah. And when you're stuck there, when you don't understand um, where they're coming from, it's pretty easy to get stuck in that place of, I'm going to be shitty with you for even suggesting that I should be grateful about this situation, because I'm not going to be grateful about this situation. But then if you allow yourself to see
I think,
beyond that and the offense, then you can move.
yeah, and that's why I think it's really important just to allow yourself time to go through all the phases, because at first I was angry, I was sad, I was like, why me? And someone said to me one time, well, why not you? What makes you, too good for this to happen or something? And it was like, I was so kind of taken back in the beginning, but it's true. It's like, why not you? And just to go through the angry phase and the questioning why and what does this mean, and um, is is really important to designate time to really feel all those feelings during that time, because so many people have a tendency to say, I shouldn't be angry, I should be grateful, I shouldn't be sad, I shouldn't cry, these feelings aren't valid, or whatever. And it's not true. And in order to move through those feelings, you have to feel them, and they're uncomfortable, they are painful, they are scary, they give you anxiety. um, but the bravest thing I ever did was just sit with it for a little bit. And then it's almost like it just kind of fades away. I mean, it doesn't go away completely, but it does just change.
It becomes less impactful. And that's the thing, with emotional hurt. When people have been hurt in a relationship or in any part of life, and it's affected them emotionally, the you see a lot of people after many, many years and decades, of not, for example, talking to a family member or a brother or a relative or whatever, they get stuck on the fear of allowing themselves to experience the emotion in its full experience, right? So that then they don't realize that it's on the other side of that where the healing happens, where you can then just let go of the hurt that was caused or the misunderstanding that occurred. And getting people to go there could be scary, but it's scarier to stay there because the regret happens later. That's where regret is. But if you allow yourself to go there and be brave at that time and overcome that fear of feeling the feeling that you are so desperately trying not to feel, if you
Mhm.
just do that, then it's like a switch, isn't it? It just like flicks over
Yeah.
and then it's different.
Yeah, if you can just stick with it while it's so tough, that's like the transformation, like if you just stay with it. And like I say, I'm trying to get comfortable being uncomfortable. So that when something uncomfortable comes up and you don't want to do it, it's like the exact time you should do it.
Yeah, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah, that's a great thing to do. Your Instagram is a really cool one because it's got a lot of the stuff on there that I like to read about. Um, for people listening who might want to connect with Whitney, they can go to Witter Mac, WHITTERMAC. I'll have the links on the show notes. And the reason I say that it's a really cool one is because some of your posts, they speak to me, and one of them particularly that speaks to me is the one where you're introducing BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor, and it's this cartoon of this little dude doing this with a really colorful hat on and blue shorts, and he's green. And what people need to know about the BDNF is that's one of the most amazing things that we create just by being active. Exercise creates a whole bunch of amazing impacts and positive things into the brain. And one of those things is the BDNF, the brain derived neurotropic factor. And you can support it in many different ways. And here, the other ways that you can support it other than exercise is you can support it by having good levels of vitamin D going out into the sun, green tea, social connection, omega 3 that comes from foods. And, and isn't it amazing that social connection supports healing the brain after stroke and getting people better? I'm lost for words. Like reading that, I know that,
Yeah.
but just reading that, that's fascinating to me.
They say it's like miracle grow for the brain, it's a really important um peptide.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. How did you grow your social network? Is it roughly the same, or does it include people now that have had a similar challenge to you?
A few since I started working with the local American Heart Association, and even the National American Heart Association. I've come across a few people that we have connected and shared stories and spoke to each other and done Zoom calls together. And some of them, I was really big into yoga before, and some of them are yoga teachers now. And every a lot of people that I talked to just had this beautiful life experience that unraveled with the devastation of a stroke.
Mm,
And most people that I've connected with have a really positive outlook. Um, I'm not a big fan of like positive vibes only, because
yeah,
it dismisses the negative, which is really important. And it's telling you something about your life or yourself or something that needs to be addressed.
yeah.
Um, but but they're very optimistic, I would say, and that's really helped me a lot because in the beginning, especially when I was still paralyzed, I was really scared. I was scared of how I would do so much in my life. So,
Optimism is such an important tool. I mean, if you can't be optimistic, you're missing out on the possibility to find those unique things that come out of left field. You know, those doors that open that you didn't expect that then change your life, like the gratitude journal.
right. Yes. I live so much more presently. Like I'm really grateful for the wake up call that I was given because when you almost die, and as you know very well, it like shakes something up in you, and it makes you realize, wow, we might not have as much time as we think. We all pretend like we're gonna live till we're 100, and it's not the case. And if you don't have to be fearful at all, but if you're just aware of your time here and you make the most of it with social connections and other people and your work and your family and whatever's important to you, then it's when it does come, it's kind of okay, instead of this big, fearful, scary thing, death.
I was raised in a family that's Christian. I suppose they're religious, I would say, but I'm not
Yeah.
really religious. But I do understand what people say when they talk about having faith. And was your faith tested? Did you feel that your faith was tested, whether you're religious or not? And has that shifted now?
I would say that I'm very much of a spiritual person who believes definitely in a bigger energy or God, maybe that even though that word is overplayed, but or maybe that's not the right word, but um, definitely, I don't think that I'm really religious, but I do believe in higher power, and um,
I suppose the question was, I know I tied it into religion, but it wasn't about that. It was about faith. And do you do you kind of practice a faith of some sort? And I'm not talking about a religious faith, a faith of things will be all right, things will turn out all right, that type of
well, I'm a big believer that life happens for you, not to you.
right.
So it's all acceptance, like I said, and it's just things are gifts with really ugly wrapping paper. I'm a believer
What a
that
great
this is a
analogy.
gift,
And if you chose the gift based on the wrapping paper, you might not want it, right?
right? Exactly.
That is such an awesome analogy. I love that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to steal
Yeah, I use it.
it. You've got on your one of your most recent posts on Instagram. It says, "Focus on the shape of your mind rather than the shape of your body." What do you mean by that? How come that resonated with you?
Well, there's a couple reasons. One is that my body is not the body that I had before. It's not able to do so many things that I once did. And so, um, really when I do focus on my mindset and my mind, somehow my body gets better or more agile, or I can do more things, or the more meditation. I'm really big on meditation because I didn't meditate prior to my stroke, and I wish that I would have. I found it because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't walk down my street, drive my car, go for a run. I couldn't do anything, and it was hard for me to sit still in the beginning. But I'd rather do meditation than just cry every day like I did for a few months.
Mm.
And so I found it. It came to me about a year and a half ago or so, and I love meditation, and I think that's another reason why I've developed the relationship that I have with myself, in addition to the photograph that I put on my bedside, because it just puts you in touch with your triggers and your personality and life in general, and how precious this time is on the planet. And so the more I meditate, the more my body responds. So it's like I'm more focused on my mindset, which in turn brings recovery to my body.
Mm. Yeah, mindset's really important because it can derail recovery and it could make it harder than it has to be. Meditation's really awesome because you can do it just by sitting in your chair at any time of the day. You can do it for a minute, has positive beneficial effects. Any longer than that, it's just positive right through. It is bringing together, it starts to help combine the body and mind, where we've experienced our body as separate entities because of the way that it's spoken about. You know, when you have a headache, you go to see somebody about your head. When you have a problem with your heart, you go and see somebody about your heart, and so on. And medicine and the Western world has compartmentalized the body, and we've learnt about it in the same way. So meditation starts to reunite everything and bring everything together. And I remember being in hospital trying to and waiting for rehabilitation and to get back on my feet for the first time and start learning how to walk again. And I had um, been practicing meditation before my surgery, and then after surgery, I was meditating and watching myself walk again, because I learned that neuroplasticity activates the same part of the brain if you pretend that you're doing something as it does if you're actually doing something. So that time, that 1 or 2 hours a day that I spent imagining myself walk, was doing the same positive things to my brain as if I was actually walking, and therefore I was able to double my rehabilitation time.
I visualization is huge also in my recovery. I visualize just for 5 minutes or less every single day for a year of running on the beach, what it would feel like, the sand, the smells, everything. And then I did it one day, and so for me, it's just I visualize. I can't really do certain movements with my foot and ankle and wrist, different things, and I visualize all the time because I read a study one time that showed if you visualize, doing bicep curls for a couple of months or something. Um,
Is that
my daughter. I'm sorry, she's like been pounding on the door.
yeah,
But anyway, I read that if you visualize it, that they actually strengthened the muscle and they never touched a weight.
yeah,
And so it's just powerful for me. Like I visualize all the time, everything. And that's probably why athletes and CEOs and really professional people do it because it primes the brain in addition maybe to strengthening a muscle or something, but it does prime the brain to get ready for the activity. And like you said, the brain doesn't know the difference between what's really happening and what you're imagining.
yeah. We can take a little bit of we can make it think that it's doing something that it's actually not, and then we can use that to our benefit. And that's a really amazing thing. One of the hardest things for me, one of the things that I feared a lot about, was getting intimate with my wife again, because I had a bleed in my brain and it was there for a while. It was there for about 3 years. So they kind of said to me, you're going to have to take it easy on a lot of things that uh, are strenuous. And that means you shouldn't go to the gym, exercise, run, any of that stuff. And then I asked the inevitable question, like, what about intimacy? And they said,
Yeah.
off, right? So getting it back was a bit of an issue and a bit of a concern. Did you have any challenges around intimacy? Was it something that you guys were able to navigate quite well, or was it a bit of a challenge?
Um, I would say that it was a challenge because of our relationship stressors, because of how stressful this was on a marriage, on a young couple that just said their vows, in sickness or health, like just a couple of years ago. And that's exactly what it was. And it brought a lot of challenges into our marriage. So I think that that played a role in it. I don't know if it was really the surgery itself or the stroke itself, but maybe our connection at the time um, just was it was a stressful time. And it wasn't as supportive as we are of each other, he was going through his own stressful event, and then his wife had a stroke, and it was a very stressful time, and
Yeah.
so I think that had a lot to do with it.
A lot of things coming together at once. And that's interesting because I haven't spoken about that specifically, not the intimacy part, the marriage part specifically with a lot of people, in that very early
Mhm.
marriage, 34-year-old people doing the vow of in sickness and in health, in death do us part. I mean, that's, you're basically not really focusing on what that means, are you? You're focusing on what all the
No,
amazing things are that are going to happen. And that's kind of something that you say because most people say it. And then, man, you're dealing with
it
all of
doesn't
that
happen.
stuff that the vows are talking about right now.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty wild, really. Yeah,
Wow.
yep.
Hey, I really have enjoyed getting to know you over this last hour. I really appreciate your being so candid and so open. I love what you're all about, and I think it's really important, the story that you shared today, because it's going to make a difference for other people that are listening. What makes it what makes it possible for you to say to this stranger from the other side of the planet who sends an email and says, can you be on my podcast? Like, what makes you able to go, yeah, I want to do that. I want to be a part of that. I want to share.
I really feel, first of all, I made sure you had like a page and that you weren't a creep or something. And I looked you up online and made sure that that was okay. But
Good man.
because I get people commenting all the time that say weird stuff, and they don't have any followers and posts and no website, and I'm like, I'm not going to say anything back to you.
I know them.
But um, I guess I just really want to help be another person that can raise awareness about stroke, because so many people in the stroke community know that it definitely happens to young, healthy people. But outside of the stroke community and outside of the medical field, it's not common knowledge that a stroke can happen to a young, healthy person. And it's really become important to me just to be an advocate and just raise awareness. And also to tell people that, we all go through the unexpected. I mean, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. And I just want to give inspiration to people that might be really having a hard time, because when I was having a hard time, if I had somebody come to me and say some things that I know now, it would have been amazing. It would have meant a lot to me at the time. So I want to give that back to others. And I just always have loved helping people. So I feel like I'd like to keep sharing.
Beautiful. That's a perfect way to end the podcast, Whitney. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks for listening to the Recovery After Stroke podcast. If you like this or any other episode, please hit the like button if you are watching on social media. Give us a thumbs up if you are watching on the YouTube channel, and give the Recovery After Stroke podcast a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. Doing this will make the podcast more visible to other stroke survivors that are doing it tough right now, and it could help them feel inspired and feel better about the road ahead. Thanks for tuning in.
Discover how to heal your brain after stroke. Go to recoveryafterstroke.com. Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamas. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.